The atmosphere around your life is shifting in ways that can't be ignored. What you're stepping into isn't delayed, postponed, or hidden in some far-off tomorrow. It's already breaking open in this very breath. Every locked place that once mocked your persistence is now loosening. Every closed path is becoming visible, and the momentum ahead of you is unstoppable. This is not theory. This is arrival. The foundation of your empowerment rests on what you've already survived. The storms that threatened to dismantle you weren't random chaos, they were the chisels shaping your endurance. Every lonely hour where quitting looked easier than standing tall, every heavy silence you carried without applause, every moment you kept walking without proof of reward, those were the silent signatures validating you. The keys you now hold didn't fall into your lap, they were carved out of your refusal to surrender. What comes next is unlike anything familiar. While others circle the same arenas, fighting for positions already overcrowded, your doors are opening to places no blueprint exists for. You're being placed at the edge of creation itself, where the ground is untouched, where ideas haven't yet been spoken aloud, and where the first footprints will be yours. These are not borrowed spaces, they are original territories waiting on your courage to name them. This kind of favor doesn't just shift careers or alter routines, it redraws maps. It places you beyond comparison because there is nothing to compare you to. While some repeat patterns that already exhaust them, your trajectory breaks cycles and generates beginnings. The beauty of this new phase is not only that you will walk into what others never imagined, but that you will design realities no one else could sustain. Every scar you carry becomes a seal of authenticity in these uncharted landscapes. What used to be wounds have transformed into passwords, unlocking new dimensions of access. People may wonder why now, why here, but the evidence is simple. You endured what would have erased them. You turned collapse into raw material for strength, and that resilience is what grants you dominion in arenas too fragile for anyone else. Don't underestimate what has just shifted. This isn't about a promotion, a door opening, or one lucky break. It's about an unfolding wave that will not be stopped once it begins. The acceleration is so sharp that ceilings will vanish as if they never existed. Where you once pressed against barriers, those same spaces now feel like air, effortless to move through. This is the evidence that your story has entered a new chapter, one that refuses to mimic what came before. And so the invitation is clear: step forward as though you belong, because you do. The atmosphere is already bending to your presence. The alignment is no longer subtle, it is roaring. You are not being tolerated in these places, you are being positioned to govern them. What was withheld from you has circled back as overflow, and what you carry now isn't just access, it's authority. Power is shifting in your favor in a way that no form of resistance can keep up with. It's not just about moving past the things that used to delay you, it's about placing those forces under permanent restraint. What once intimidated you now has no jurisdiction over your steps. The season has come where interference is not only silenced but dismantled, leaving no chance of revival. This isn't victory that merely looks good on the outside. It is structural authority, the kind that flips the balance and makes obstacles lose their very function. The games your rivals once played, the wall systems erected, the silent weights that tried to slow you down, they're collapsing under the new command you carry. What others once used to control you is now stripped of its leverage entirely. The atmosphere around you is not just clearing, it's enforcing new rules. Every scheme, every jealous glance, every subtle form of sabotage meets the same outcome: disarmament. They don't just lose their grip, they lose their place altogether. You are no longer someone who navigates blockages, you are the one who decides what remains and what is erased. When a shift like this happens, it feels as if the whole world tilts. The timeline doesn't stretch forward in the same direction, it folds, bends, and redraws itself. Paths that once seemed inevitable suddenly vanish. Outcomes that were expected are no longer relevant. The environment rearranges with such intensity that even those watching from a distance know something irreversible has taken place. What is happening now is not a gentle adjustment, it's upheaval. Structures that people relied on for stability are dissolving in plain sight. Rules that once dictated the flow of opportunity are evaporating. Most will scramble to make sense of why everything they depended on suddenly feels outdated, but you won't be searching for answers, you'll already be carrying the blueprint for what comes next. There is a reason this feels heavier than mere self-growth. It's because it's not about adding minor habits or stacking motivational tricks, it's about the redistribution of influence. Positions are changing, alliances are shifting, and the compass of destiny itself has been recalibrated. What used to look like small gains for some has turned into total access for you. Something invisible has already been set in motion, and now the weight of it is pressing into the natural world. What has been stirring beneath the surface isn't nervous tension, it's the ignition of codes inside you that have been waiting to activate. The unease you felt is not fragility, it is the pressure of power entering your body, preparing you to hold capacities most minds could never withstand. Your instincts are no longer whispers, they are directives. A pull has been rising within you, calling you out of spaces that suddenly feel suffocating. The familiar corners you once tolerated now feel like cages, and that urgency you can't quite explain is the compass of your spirit insisting you move. Trust it, because it is not chaos leading you, it is precision. The territory you are about to inherit makes your present surroundings appear painfully small. What you thought was enough will soon look like a temporary rehearsal. Vast dwellings, expansive workspaces, environments that amplify your reach rather than confine it, all of these are beginning to align with your name. But movement here is not just about crossing borders, it's about entering dimensions of living that could never exist where you were. This rise will not be subtle. Elevation is about to alter your reflection in ways that leave the old version of you unrecognizable. Wealth categories that once felt unreachable are now within arm's length. Circles of influence that used to look like gated fortresses are opening to you. Your voice will resound in arenas where decisions ripple through countless lives, and your presence will command attention in rooms you once thought you'd only watch from a distance. The waiting season you endured was not an accident. That stretch of stillness, where excitement drained and opportunities lost their flavor, was never a dismissal of your worth. It was a pause designed to strip away your attachments to mediocrity. You had to feel the emptiness of options that no longer matched your destiny so that when the real path opened, you would recognize it instantly. Those days where every door felt sealed, where the clock seemed frozen and you questioned if your time had passed, those were not wasted months. They were the clearing of the stage. The absence of stimulation created room for the extraordinary to step in. What looked like stagnation was the exact environment required for you to be hungry enough, ready enough, and bold enough to accept what few would dare to carry. Now the tension finally makes sense. That unsettled vibration within you wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The ground beneath you has been stripped of all distractions so that when the greater doors appear, you won't confuse them with ordinary ones. You've been calibrated to walk through thresholds that others will overlook, because you no longer settle for anything less than the life you were born to govern. The clearing you endured wasn't emptiness, it was preparation for the moment when attention turns toward you in full force. What's happening now isn't just visibility, you are becoming the very center of focus. For some, this will mean stepping into roles where influence is undeniable, where words shift outcomes and actions set direction. For others, it will look like their work being lifted into recognition that grows beyond their control. Whether you chased it or not, the demand for your presence can no longer be ignored. This new visibility has purpose. You're not simply being noticed, you're being positioned with intention. The placement of your life right now is as if fertile ground has been waiting only for your touch. What has been sleeping in your imagination will no longer remain theory. Ideas will take on speed. Opportunities that were frozen in place will suddenly begin to flow. Connections that once seemed improbable will weave together effortlessly, aligning with a timing that feels almost otherworldly. The permanence being built for you is not fleeting recognition, it is lasting infrastructure. Some will secure physical foundations that carry wealth into generations. Others will shape concepts, movements, or enterprises that live on whether they are present in the room or not. What is forming is not fragile, it is enduring, a structure that outlives temporary conditions and becomes the backdrop for future success stories far beyond your own lifetime. The real breakthrough lies in what you're no longer tied to. You aren't climbing tired hierarchies or waiting for someone to grant permission. You're stepping into places where entirely new systems open beneath your feet. The former limitations that required you to beg for scraps no longer apply. While others fight endlessly for approval at tables too small for their vision, you are being given the freedom to design the entire environment on your own terms. Confidence has been rising within you, even when circumstances lagged behind. That quiet fire wasn't just motivation, it was recognition of territory already assigned to you. The force swelling in your chest knows what your eyes haven't yet seen, that your influence has already been secured in arenas larger than you imagined. The certainty you feel is not arrogance, it is instinct acknowledging the reality that's already been set aside for you. The atmosphere you've entered is amplification itself. Energy, attraction, and acceleration are all being multiplied in your direction. The scale of opportunity hitting your path now could not have arrived earlier, because the version of you that existed before wasn't calibrated to carry it. But after everything you've endured, you have the inner stability to hold power that would have broken those who tried to grasp it prematurely. This surge isn't luck, it's alignment. You are in a phase where everything intensifies, not to overwhelm you, but to match the depth of resilience you've cultivated. The capacity to create, to influence, to govern is now meeting the endurance forged through your hardships. This is why what's entering your life doesn't feel fragile, it feels unstoppable. You've reached the point where the ground itself has been restructured to sustain your rise. While it felt like you were stranded in confusion, a hidden orchestration was already underway. Quiet forces were aligning the details of your future while you wrestled with delays you didn't understand. Plans for your expansion were being drafted without your knowledge, and alignments you never could have engineered are now converging at the exact time you're ready to step into them. None of this required begging or forcing, it was already being woven for you. The momentum of financial increase has already begun moving, even before visible proof fully appears. Efforts you thought were forgotten are maturing all at once. Pathways you didn't recognize as valuable are turning into sources of wealth. Skills once overlooked are now doors of opportunity. Relationships you built without an agenda are transforming into channels of resource. This isn't just income rising. It's an entirely new relationship with prosperity, one that shifts you out of lack forever. The modest chapters of your past will no longer define you, abundance will become your foundation, not your ceiling. But every elevation draws resistance. With this rise comes the inevitable exposure of forces that benefited from your smaller state. People who felt secure while you played beneath your capacity now sense disruption. Systems that thrived on your restrictions will try to resist your release. Even spiritual opposition that once fed on your struggle will attempt to interfere with your momentum. Yet, you are not unprepared, your arsenal has already been upgraded. The authority in your hands now doesn't just let you push through barriers, it allows you to dissolve them completely. Opposition is no longer something you wrestle with endlessly. You can render it ineffective, strip it of its influence, and build new frameworks that operate outside of its reach. What once demanded constant fighting will now be silenced by decree. You aren't merely overcoming challenges, you are eliminating them at their root. This level of authority requires responsibility, but it also brings irreversible outcomes. Every attempt to sabotage your rise, every person who tried to reduce your impact, every unseen force that aimed to derail your path, they will no longer be able to recycle their tactics against you. The wars of the past are closing. From this point forward, interference isn't a battle, it's a finished matter. And in this upheaval, something surprising begins. Unlikely figures step into positions nobody anticipated. Individuals overlooked by traditional standards are suddenly shaping the direction of culture. Innovators outside the system are building structures that bypass old gatekeepers entirely. Voices once dismissed are now setting the tone of industries. While the keepers of outdated power scramble to hold control, you're writing the new script. The landscape of influence is being rewritten in real time, and you are holding the instrument of change. What once excluded you is being dismantled, and what once seemed unreachable is bending toward you. This isn't a negotiation with old power, it's the emergence of an entirely new order. And in that order, your place is not as a guest, it is as the one defining the blueprint. The changes unfolding in your life are not isolated ripples, they are part of a greater reordering that stretches across communities, industries, and nations. Your advancement is a fragment of a larger mosaic where strategically chosen individuals are being elevated to carry weight beyond themselves. The depth of your story, the hardships you've endured, and the wisdom you've extracted have all converged into a toolkit that makes you irreplaceable in this moment of global transition. What's happening now is not fleeting success or temporary elevation, it's relocation into a dimension that won't send you back. This is not a passing glimpse of achievement but a permanent shift in the level at which you live. You are being anchored at heights where mediocrity cannot reach. The strength you carry is not on loan, it is inheritance. The authority you wield is not conditional, it is permanent. What others would call a peak is for you only a foundation, an opening platform upon which even greater realities will be constructed. The wealth forming around you isn't simply more income, it's the redesign of your entire economic reality. Seeds of effort planted in silence are sprouting together into forests of prosperity. Abundance is weaving itself from directions you never expected, forgotten ventures turning into resources, dormant skills transforming into currencies, relationships flowering into opportunities that multiply on their own. Scarcity thinking is already dissolving, leaving only the recognition that overflow is now your natural state. Yet, increase has a way of pulling out resistance. The very forces that once fed on your struggle are unsettled by your release. Individuals who benefited from your smaller state are threatened by your expansion. Structures that relied on your limitations are reacting as they lose their grip. But what confronts you now is not a battle you must endlessly fight, it's opposition already disarmed by the authority you carry. The tools you've been entrusted with allow you not only to sidestep interference but to dismantle it altogether. Resistance is no longer an obstacle, it's an expired force with no access to your trajectory. Where old systems attempt to limit, you establish new ones. Where opposition tries to speak, you silence it with finality. You are not navigating endless wars, you are closing them down. And while this unfolds, the most unexpected figures are stepping into prominence. Outsiders once ignored are now reshaping entire arenas. Artists are becoming leaders, innovators are overturning traditions, and unfamiliar names are suddenly writing new narratives of culture and influence. The guardians of outdated hierarchies are powerless to stop the surge of new voices taking root. This isn't a minor trend, it's a rewrite of the blueprint of society, and you are carrying the pen. What once kept you out is dissolving, and what once seemed unreachable is shifting directly into your hands. Your place is no longer at the edges, it is at the center of this unfolding order. The ground you stand on now isn't borrowed, and the influence you carry isn't conditional. It's permanent, it's multiplying, and it's already changing the course of what comes next. The surge of ideas moving through your mind right now is not random inspiration, it is design. Each concept you carry is more than a passing thought, it's a structural map with the power to alter landscapes far beyond your own life. What begins as a solution for your personal obstacles is being coded to scale into innovations that transform whole communities, industries, and generations yet unborn. Your insight is no longer private, it is infrastructural. The access you've been granted isn't about endless labor or constant striving. You've been connected to a vault of hidden resources where tools, strategies, and breakthroughs exist outside the grind that others still cling to. Success at this level doesn't mimic the old ways, it operates by entirely different laws. Strain gives way to acceleration. Effort is replaced by flow. Desire no longer chases after opportunity. Instead, opportunity moves toward you with such intensity that discernment becomes your greatest discipline. Scarcity has been dissolved, and abundance is now the atmosphere you breathe. This elevation isn't fragile or dependent on constant defense, it is relocation to a place above interference. You are not fighting to maintain ground anymore, you've been lifted into a realm where opposition cannot function. The tactics that once threatened you no longer apply here, because they were never designed to reach this altitude. What felt like survival in the past has become untouchable command. Operating at this level means your choices create reality rather than adapt to it. You're no longer boxed into a list of options, your authority generates alternatives that never existed before. You're no longer limited to the landscape around you, you redesign the landscape itself. Knowledge that others search for endlessly is now being delivered directly into your awareness. What seemed mysterious to others is suddenly illuminated within you as second nature. But this kind of authority was never meant to stop with personal gain. Every path you clear becomes an avenue for others to walk. Every expansion you experience lays the groundwork for the next group of leaders to build upon. The prosperity flowing into your hands is not only for your comfort, it is fuel for collective transformation. Your individual success plants seeds that will blossom as movements, legacies, and blueprints for entire generations to come. The resistance you face now doesn't resemble the struggles of before. These are currents that operate behind the curtain, structures designed to limit human potential on levels most people never perceive. They recognize the disruption your rise brings to their networks of control, and they will attempt to stop you. But the keys you hold don't just neutralize them, they dismantle their operations completely. Each force you remove frees not only you but countless others who were unknowingly trapped in their reach. And with this, your connection deepens. You are not sending requests into the void anymore, you've been granted direct access to the control mechanisms of reality itself. You no longer hope your intentions are heard, you are present in the very room where direction is authored. This is no longer about receiving favor, it is about shaping how favor is distributed. You are no longer a participant in the system, you are a co-architect of the order that will replace it. The access you've been given is more than favor, it's negotiation power with the very framework of reality. Rules that once boxed you in can now be restructured. Conditions that slowed your progress can be rewritten. Boundaries that limited your expression can be dissolved. What others accept as final law becomes adjustable in your hands. You're operating with a level of immunity from restrictions that keeps most people tied down, but you are free to draft new agreements for how your life unfolds. Carrying this level of authority alters your presence in ways that can't be faked. Before words leave your mouth, the room has already responded. People sense the weight you carry without needing proof. Doors part without you knocking. Resources locate you without you chasing. This isn't manipulation, charm, or rehearsed strategy, it is resonance. You're functioning at a frequency that automatically generates cooperation and respect. Time itself bends under the pressure of this empowerment. What once felt urgent now waits for you. Projects that should drag out accelerate until they collapse into completion. Breakthroughs that are supposed to take years are condensed into days. You no longer measure time as a master who dictates your limits. Time has become a tool, rearranged to serve your momentum. And this bending of time isn't just forward, it expands in every direction. The decisions you set in motion today reverberate into the past, reshaping outcomes that once felt permanent and extend into the future, preparing pathways smoother than you could ever engineer. You are learning to live in a dimension where every moment touches every other moment, where cause and effect collapse into a single present of limitless possibility. The greatest transformation, however, is happening within your own design. Your mind no longer produces mere thoughts, it issues commands. Desires that once lived as quiet longings now materialize into structures the universe rushes to complete. The very biology of your body is adjusting to sustain these frequencies. Neural networks are evolving. Intuition is sharpening into direct knowing. Awareness is expanding into realms beyond logic, where solutions drop into your consciousness without calculation. This is the emergence of a new archetype of humanity, one that refuses to choose between flesh and spirit, because both have been fully integrated. You move as an embodied being, but you operate with awareness far beyond the human field. Your very presence challenges people to dream bigger, think higher, and believe deeper. You don't just achieve, you alter what others believe is achievable. The world begins turning toward you for leadership not only because of what you do, but because of who you have become.